The Gaza Health Ministry reports that since October 7th, more than 42,252 Palestinians have been killed, including nearly 16,500 children. Updated figures also show that over 96,092 people have been injured, with more than 10,000 missing under the rubble. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, updated figures show that at least 718 people, including around 160 children, have been killed, with more than 5,700 people injured. Speaking at the United Nations General Assembly earlier today, Syrian Foreign Minister Bassem Sabah said that Israel is pushing the region to the brink of dangerous escalation.
إن هذا العدوان الإسرائيلي واسع النطاق والمنفلت من أي قيود وضوابط يدفع بالمنطقة إلى شفا تصعيد خطير ومواجهة لا يمكن التنبؤ بعواقبها.
15 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs, some of the most deadly munitions in the world, were dropped by Israel on Beirut last weekend in a successful attempt to kill Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. Coming after days of bombardment and on the back of the pager attacks, the deaths in Lebanon exceed anything it has seen in 20 years. Although Hezbollah's deputy leader was quick to promise that a new leader would be chosen soon, and although missiles continue to be fired at Israel, there's no question that Hezbollah has been outgunned in recent exchanges. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued this blood-curdling threat to the region.
אזרחי ישראל, אלה ימים גדולים. אנחנו במה שנראה כנקודת מפנה היסטורית. חיסולו מקדם את החזרת תושבינו לבתיהם בצפון, והוא גם מקדם את השבת חטופינו בדרום. ולמשטר האייתולות אני אומר, מי שיכה בנו, אנחנו נכה בו. אין מקום באיראן או במזרח התיכון שהזרוע הארוכה של ישראל לא תגיע אליו. והיום אתם כבר יודעים כמה זה נכון. אנחנו נחושים להמשיך להכות באויבינו, להשיב לבתיהם את תושבינו ולהחזיר את כל חטופינו. אנחנו לא שוכחים אותם לרגע.
That hubris could change if Israel goes ahead and sends its tanks, now poised in northern Israel, across the border. Hezbollah will be much more effective in a ground war than it has been trying to cope with Israeli air superiority. Whether Hezbollah can regain the initiative is a question that will be answered in Tehran as well as in Beirut. Israel has brushed off calls for restraint, even from the United States, and has escalated the Gaza slaughter into a war across the region in Lebanon and Yemen, as well as the West Bank. The resistance in these areas are forces which, while not puppets of Iran, as the mainstream media often claim, are nevertheless allied to Iran. Iran has been long on rhetoric in support of the Palestinians, but shorter on actions, frequently urging restraint, as they did even after the leader of Hamas was targeted and killed by Israel while in Tehran. Iran's reformist leadership has been attempting to restart the discussion with the West about lifting sanctions. Discussions effectively ended under Donald Trump's presidency. The reformist leaders of Iran will now be asked what the regime is gaining by giving up its nuclear program when the United States is simply unwilling or unable to prevent Israel degrading Iran's military and political profile across the region. Meanwhile, with or without a significant reaction from Iran, Israel's bloody rampage through the region is unlikely to gain it the security it says it craves. Previous military victories, much more complete than the recent bombing raids, like the 1967 Six-Day War, which ended with Israel occupying 27,000 square miles of its Arab neighbours' lands, brought in the long run more resistance, not more peace. New Israeli attacks set Yemeni fuel and port facilities ablaze yesterday. The attacks come as Israel is already fighting Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank and Lebanese in a series of huge bombing raids which killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah over the weekend. The air raids on Yemen killed 4 and injured 33 and resulted in power cuts in the port city of Hadida. The Houthi movement, which governs Yemen, has been running a highly effective blockade of shipping routes through the Red Sea in support of the Palestinians. Previous bombing raids by the US and the UK have failed to break the blockade, which has resulted in much of the world's container traffic now making its way south around the Horn of Africa rather than through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. The Houthis have also fired missiles at Israel, including a recent ballistic missile aimed at the airport from which a plane carrying Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was taking off. Israel is attempting to carry out a region-wide series of attacks to free itself from what Israeli ministers describe as the Ring of Fire, an allusion to the fact that Israel has created a perimeter of hostile states around its borders. However, both the missile attacks from Lebanon and the actions of the Houthis were a response to Israel's slaughter in Gaza, now near to a year in duration and leading to over 40,000 dead. Long before the events of October the 7th, Israel had become the only country in the Middle East to have invaded every country with which it borders. The extreme right-wing government of Benjamin Netanyahu has ignored the appeals of the UN, including the US and the UK, not to risk a wider Middle East war. Many UN delegates walked out when Netanyahu addressed the General Assembly last week.
I say to you, until Israel, until the Jewish state is treated like other nations, until this anti-Semitic swamp is drained, the UN will be viewed by fair-minded people everywhere as nothing more than a contemptuous farce.
But the calculation of the Israeli government seems to be that its Western backers will always defend Israel after the fact, even when it has previously urged caution. So far, that bet has paid off. The Western powers have waded so deeply into the bloodbath that the Israelis have created that they have foregone all leverage that might otherwise have given them over Netanyahu's warmongering. We struck the Houthis in Yemen. We know how to reach very far. We know how to reach even farther, says Israeli Army Chief Herzi Halevi, boasting in an Israeli propaganda video shown here. The Israeli attack is very unlikely to deter the Houthis. Possibly it will have the opposite effect. Earlier this year, the Associated Press reported that 90% of container ships that had previously gone through the Suez Canal were now going round the Cape of Good Hope. The blockade is so effective that the Tesla factory in Berlin had to close temporarily in February, and shipping and insurance costs have risen massively.
Austria's far-right Freedom Party, also known as FPO, has claimed a landmark victory in the national elections, securing 28.8% of the vote and surpassing the ruling Conservative People's Party OVP, which garnered 26.3%. In his speech following the election results, FPO leader Herbert Kickl thanked supporters.
Ich kann euch gar nicht sagen, wie sehr ich mich über dieses Ergebnis freue. Das, was wir erreicht haben, das übertrifft meine kühnsten Träume. Danke dafür. Wir haben tatsächlich dieses Tor aufgemacht. Wir haben eine Tür aufgestoßen zu einer neuen Ära. Wir werden jetzt wirklich dieses neue Kapitel der österreichischen Geschichte miteinander schreiben. Wir haben das verinnerlicht, dass es gilt, zuerst das Volk und dann der Kanzler.
This historic win marks the first time the FPO has stopped the pause in a national election, signalling a growing wave of far-right success across Europe. Despite their victory, the FPO faces significant challenges in forming a government. Most political parties have openly refused to partner with the FPO due to its hardline stances on issues like immigration, Euroscepticism and its controversial ties to Russia. The FPO has also increasingly focused on anti-Muslim rhetoric, portraying Islam as incompatible with Austrian values and a threat to the country's cultural identity. The party has used slogans like "Vienna must not become Istanbul" to fuel fears of immigration and cultural dilution. This stance has become central to the FPO's populist strategy, aligning with broader European far-right movements focused on identity, politics and immigration. The FPO's rise mirrors the broader success of far-right parties across Europe, fueled by public dissatisfaction over issues such as migration, economic challenges and discontent with pandemic-era restrictions. While Kikel expressed his willingness to work with any party in parliament, the only feasible coalition appears to be with the OVP, a party that has consistently rejected his leadership. As Austria grapples with the implications of the FPO's victory, political experts warn that the country could see its relationship with the European Union change dramatically should Kikel succeed in forming a government. His admiration for Hungary's Viktor Orbán and rejection of European Union sanctions on Russia have sparked concerns about Austria's future in European politics.
As the Democratic Republic of the Congo prepares to launch a long-awaited Mpox vaccination campaign, the reality on the ground paints a picture of immense logistical challenges. Kamituga, a gold mining town in South Kivu province, is at the heart of the country's Mpox outbreak, which began in September 2023. The town will be among the first to receive vaccines when the rollout begins on October 2nd. However, the region's rugged terrain and limited infrastructure poses significant obstacles. Kamituga lies 180 kilometers from the provincial capital, Bukavu, and is accessible by only a single winding dirt road. With a population that swells due to transient miners and visitors, tracking and controlling the virus in Congo has proven to be a daunting task. Authorities are concerned that the fluid movement of people may complicate efforts to contain the outbreak and ensure widespread vaccination.
Le premier défi pour nous, sont les moyens. Aujourd'hui, nous avons Kamituga avec 25 aires de santé. Les moyens à notre disposition nous permettent de couvrir 5 aires de santé. Nous sommes en train de faire des plaidoyers pour que nous puissions monter de 5 à 11 aires de santé parce que jusqu'à ce jour, il y a 11 aires de santé qui continuent à notifier des cas.
Ndio kabisa, inaweza kuwa ya maana sana ile vaccine ikuwe kwa kuproteger aussi shie wa motard na mafamilia yetu pia kuwe proteger. Juu ile vaccine ikifanyika na wazi ile magonjwa ama epidemie itakuwa inaishi na haitakuwa tena.
Il n'y a pas de route, il n'y a pas d'ambulance. On met le malade sur le dos du conducteur de la moto et le cadavre. Hein. Donc le cadavre, on le positionne au milieu et on met un passager en arrière sur le même siège et le conducteur devant. Le passager doit tenir le conducteur et le cadavre en même temps pour résister sur de très très mauvaises routes. Eh bien, voilà comment la maladie s'est propagée.
The number of patients admitted to hospitals with dengue is rising after the rainy season, with a significant portion of these patients affected by this mosquito-borne disease are children. According to government statistics, 1 out of every 5 dengue patients admitted to hospitals in Bangladesh this year is under the age of 15. As a precaution, due to the spread of the disease among children, a specialized dengue corner has been established at the Bangladesh Shishu Hospital and Institute in Dhaka. Until Sunday, the ward had 16 beds, but by Monday, the number of beds had been increased to 24. In the 24 hours leading up to Monday morning, 11 children had been admitted there. On Monday, 25 children were in the hospital, with 2 of them in the intensive care unit or ICU. Hospital data shows that from January to September the 22nd this year, 210 children were admitted to the hospital with dengue. Of those, 83 were admitted in the first 3 weeks of this month alone. In order to fight the rising number of dengue cases, Bangladeshi health authorities have strengthened measures to check the breeding of mosquitoes and conduct anti-larval operations. The June-September monsoon period is the season of dengue fever in Bangladesh, which is considered a high-risk nation for mosquito-borne diseases.
The annual Conservative Party conference, the first in 14 years to be held from opposition, began yesterday in Birmingham and will conclude on September the 2nd. The event is anticipated to be a low-key affair, with lobbyists either making brief appearances or skipping it entirely. This year, the Conservatives gather at a critical juncture as the conference showcases candidates competing to replace Rishi Sunak as leader. However, this contest raises deeper concerns about a party that appears to have lost its direction following a significant defeat in July's general election. At his final speech as leader of the party, Rishi Sunak has urged the Conservative Party to unite behind whoever wins the contest to replace him. He also insisted the Tories could not let Prime Minister Keir Starmer rewrite history and celebrated his party's record of 14 years in office.
Kemi Badenoch, a strong contestant in the Conservative leadership contest, has recently sparked controversy with her comments on immigration, cultural integration and political ideology. In an interview on Sunday with Laura Kunsberg, Badenoch pushed back against suggestions that her remarks were aimed at Muslims. However, in a later interview with Sky News, she continued to express similar views, fueling further controversy.
And what you talk about is not the numbers, but the nature of immigration and immigrants. And you say, I am struck, for example, by the number of recent immigrants to the UK who hate Israel. That sentiment has no place here. Which immigrants are we talking about?
Well, people who come from countries where Israel is seen as an enemy. I remember growing up in Nigeria as a young child that people talked about Israel with a lot of positivity. What I didn't know is that in the northern part of the country, which was heavily Muslim, people spoke in a completely different way. And I also remember 10 years ago when 300 girls were stolen from school and taken away by Islamist terrorists. It resonates with what happened on October 7th. And so I'm always shocked by the number of people who are unable to sympathize with those victims, people who are ripping down posters. I think that's extraordinary. Missing children's posters being ripped down because people hate the country. I don't think that has any place here.
It's interesting, you know, you make a virtue of your plain speaking and so on, but you evidently mean, when you say the number of recent immigrants who hate Israel, you evidently mean Muslim immigrants. Why didn't you just say that?
Because it's not all Muslim immigrants. And this is what I don't do. I'm very careful when I speak. I've met many Muslim people who love Israel. I met them in the Middle East. When I went to Saudi, when I went to the UAE, you know, you look at the Abraham Accords, there are many people in the Middle East who want to support Israel. I remember reading, after this assassination of the Hezbollah leader, loads of people from Arab countries who were actually very pleased. That man caused chaos in Syria. So it is not all Muslims, but there are some, those who buy into Islamist ideology, political Islam, they do not like Israel. And we need to be able to distinguish them.
Badenoch's stance ties into a broader issue within the Conservative Party, where concerns about Islamophobia have been raised, notably by Baroness Saida Wolsey, who resigned over this ongoing problem. Badenoch insisted she was being cautious not to generalize, highlighting the complexity of addressing extremism without implicating entire communities. Her comments about the validity of different cultures, particularly her criticism of anti-Israel sentiment among some immigrants, have drawn significant criticism. Badenoch argued that not all cultural attitudes should be accepted uncritically, which has been viewed as a rejection of multiculturalism. Her remarks on immigration and integration align with rhetoric often associated with far-right views. With the Conservative Party conference in Birmingham, Badenoch's ability to navigate these sensitive topics will play a crucial role in shaping her political future. If she does succeed Rishi Sunak as Conservative leader, the party's Islamophobia issues could spiral out of control.
Afghanistan's national futsal team made history by qualifying for their first Futsal World Cup in Uzbekistan this September. Competing against elite teams like Argentina, Paraguay and Ukraine, Afghanistan's men in white and red captivated the hearts of many Afghans. 21-year-old Kabul resident Mustafa, who is driven by the dream of representing Afghanistan on the global stage, trains tirelessly in a bustling sports complex and shared his delight at the futsal team's success.
خیلی احساس خوشی می داشته باشیم و همچنان با ما امکان نگذیریم که رویا بسازیم، رویا بپردازیم و در زندگی بفهمیم که هیچ چیزی ناممکن نیست و به هر چیزی که می‌خوایم به او تلاش کنیم ان شاء الله که میرسیم. وقتی می‌بینین که تیمتان با بیرقتان با سرود ملیتان با نام کشورتان به چنین سطح میرسه به شک انگیزه شما رو بسیار بالا میبره و یک روحیه مضاعف به انسان میده تا که بتواند توسط امور روحیه و خود نظم بده، دیسیپلین بده و انگیزه بده که به اهدافی که داره برسه.
In the group stage, Afghanistan claimed a thrilling 6-4 victory over Angola, narrowly lost to former champions Argentina 2-1 and faced a 4-1 defeat to Ukraine. Despite these setbacks, they secured their spot in the last 16 of the tournament. On September 25th, Afghanistan's journey came to an end, however, after a 3-1 loss to Paraguay in extra time, but the team was met with applause from passionate Afghan fans, both in the stadium and watching live on Afghan television. Afghanistan's athletes face unique circumstances, with their country being imposed with sanctions following the return of the Taliban to power. But for Afghan futsal fans, these obstacles have not dampened their pride.
فوتسال افغانستان در سالهای اخیر خوشبختانه توسط برنامه خوبی که فدراسیونشان داشت خیلی رشد و ترقی کردن و به خاطر همین مسابقات جام جهانی ما چندین ما زحمت کشیدن، تمرینات سخت و فشرده را هم در داخل افغانستان هم در کمپ تمرینیشون که در مشهد بود سپری کردن و خوشبختانه امروزه ما می‌بینیم که برای اولین بار در جام جهانی حضور کردن و صعود تاریخیشون در مرحله 16 نهایی هم برای کل ما جای بسیار خرسندی است.
In the heart of Arras, a town renowned for its culinary enthusiasm, a unique competition took centre stage on Saturday, the second edition of the World Championship of Fries. 36 competitors, ranging from seasoned professionals to ambitious amateurs, gathered to showcase their fry-making skills to a jury and a lively crowd of 50,000. This year's championship, organised by the Arras Pays d'Artois Tourism Office, drew participants from around the world.
Je suis très fière. En fait, j'ai mon ami qui habite à Arras et c'était vraiment l'occasion de venir ici pour le championnat du monde de la frite parce que forcément pour les Belges, la frite c'est sacré. Donc voilà, il y a une petite bagarre entre nous pour parler justement de ces frites. Donc voilà, moi je voulais représenter mon pays parce que je suis fière d'être belge et je suis fière de...
The event's international appeal continued to grow, with contenders in categories ranging from authentic fries, reserved for professionals, to homemade family-style fries, and even an inventive world fries category. For many, a perfect fry is all about nostalgia. Alan van Orbeck fondly recounted how his grandmother, without a refrigerator on her farm, would use rancid butter to fry up potatoes.
Alors, une bonne frite. Alors, c'est celle qui se rapproche le plus de frites de ma grand-mère, qu'il faisait avec du beurre rance. Des frites au beurre rance, c'est-à-dire qu'il avait une ferme, il produisait notamment du beurre. À l'époque, il n'y avait pas de frigo. Et l'été, parfois, le beurre devenait rance. Et plutôt que de ne pas le consommer, ma grand-mère faisait des frites dans le beurre rance fondu. Et
Creativity was also on full display. Dylan Hammy, a contestant in the Creative Fries category, offered a truffle-infused potato puree paired with panna cotta flavoured with beef fat, wowing the audience with his culinary flair. The event didn't stop at just tasting fries. Attendees enjoyed masterclasses from top chefs like two-star chef Alexandra Gautier, who whipped up a spinach Popeye sauce for his fries, and pastry chef Jordan Bernard, who delighted the crowd with a sweet potato croquette featuring a red fruit filling and fry-flavoured ice cream. To burn off some of those calories, the festival also featured a playful potato sack race in the Grand Place, bringing a light-hearted end to the celebration of one of the world's most beloved comfort foods.